National Assembly has ended the third session of the 7th Assembly, and today we will look at the bills the Senate considered and passed this third session. I'm Linda Kibi, and you're welcome to the Gavel. Now, the National Assembly almost 2 weeks ago went on a 2 weeks recess to mark the end of the third session of the 7th Assembly. Some of the key bills passed by the Senate in the third session are the Pension Reform Bill and the National Health Bill. Let's find out more.
The National Assembly went on a 2 weeks recess on June the 5th to mark the end of the third session of the 7th Assembly. The Senate and the House of Representatives have completed 3 of the 4 legislative sessions of this Assembly. As at the close of legislative business on June the 5th, 2014, a total of 187 bills were introduced from June 2013. Out of the 187 bills, 9 were executive bills, while the remaining were member bills. A total of 12 bills have been passed by the Senate. A chairman Senate Committee on Rules and Business gives a highlight of the bills passed by the Senate.
The highlight and some of the achievements of the Senate in the third session include the passage of the Pension Reform Bill, which reflects the sensitivity of the Senate toward the plight of pensioners and Nigerian workers. This bill is aimed particularly at regulating the administration of uniform contributory pension scheme in both the public and private sectors. The passage of the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Bill, the approval of further extension of the state of emergency in Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa states in accordance with the Constitution. This, we all know, is in accordance and response to the security challenges we have.
But how has the National Assembly fared in the last 3 years? Some Nigerians have also criticized the National Assembly for dragging as regards the passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill.
To further highlight what the Senate did in the third session and what the upper chamber would be looking at on resumption, we spoke with the chairman, Senate Committee on Rules and Business, Senator Ita Enang.
The legislature is not measured on the number of bills passed. It is measured on the number of measures considered. In the Senate and in the National Assembly, part of what we do is we accept and confirm the nominations of Mr. President for ministers, for justices of the Supreme Court, President of the Court of Appeal, Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, because we act as the House of Assembly for the Federal Capital Territory. We also look at the budget of the Federal Capital Territory, budget of the Niger Delta Development Commission, budget of the National Communications Commission, budget of about 52 agencies, which we will consider as we resume after the national budget. We also consider appropriation. And after that, we also consider what we call oversight. We look at the performance of the budget and the implementation of the budget by the executive. Now, we also do oversight in terms of visiting project site. And we also, for committees that have roles over foreign affairs, they go out looking at the embassies and commissions. And then senators also belong to the ECOWAS Parliament. You know that the Deputy President of the Senate is the Speaker of ECOWAS Parliament. He is also the Chairman of the Nigerian National Institute of Legislative Studies. He is also the Chairman of the Committee on Amendment of the Constitution, and he supervises the Appropriations Committee. Now, when you consider all this, the totality of the work of the legislature, and occasionally you have matters arising relating to national security, where you'll have to invite the service chiefs, the ministers, and so on, the Minister of Defense, the service chiefs, Director General of the State Security Service, and the Nigerian Intelligence Agency, and all of them. You invite either in plenary, or you invite in committee of whole, you invite in closed executive session, you interact with them and interfere with them, relating to security. And when it happens in any particular area, there are days that you dedicate for attention to such matters. Now, when you consider all this, you know that the legislature is not measured and ought not to be measured by the number of bills it has declared. You also would have to measure it by the number of bills that has been introduced. As of today, we'll be getting up close to 500 bills, which has been introduced. And if when these bills are introduced, what we do first is we list it we do what we call cleansing. And the cleansing, the Rules and Business Committee will look at the bill. It will look at whether it is a matter that should come as a matter of by way of motion, or it is a bill that there is a law in existence on it already, and which you can advise an amendment of that law, or you can say there is another law, not this law, which you can amend. For instance, if it's a matter relating to banking, you can look and see, look, it is not a matter you can amend the Central Bank Act. It's a matter you can amend the Fiscal Responsibility Act, or it's a matter you amend the Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation Act, or it's a matter you amend the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act, or it's a matter you amend the Securities and Exchange Commission Act. But the bill may have been introduced by then. Therefore, the legislature ought not to be measured. It's not measured by the number of bills passed. Our leader and Mr. President has often leaded. And when you look at the number of bills the United States Congress is said to have passed in a session, in a term, you see sometimes it doesn't exceed 3 or 4 or 5. But their job is not only to pass bills. Their job is to consider bills, and we give consideration to bills.
Now, in less than 2 weeks, the Senate will be resuming after a 2-week recess to mark the end of the 3rd year of the Assembly. This is the last year before the election year. What key priority issues will be given attention to by the Senate? There
are several of the bills that are pending, and I know the public and the channels television is also interested in the quick passage of the petroleum industry bill. We will give priority to it. We had concluded work on the internal revenue service of the Federal Capital Territory, where we have on our hands the budget of the Federal Capital Territory. We will give priority to it. We'll also give priority to the budget of the Niger Delta Development Commission, which was introduced and submitted to us a day before we went on vacation. We committed it to the Committee on Niger Delta Affairs the following day on the date we actually went on vacation, proceeded on vacation. Then there is the budget of the National Communications Commission. There are measures relating to terrorism, relating to the fighting of terrorism, there is matter relating to the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Center, and a lot of all those ones. We will give priority to bills which we have received report. Next to be prioritized are bills for second reading, and next to be prioritized are bills which are at this stage of first reading, so that the reports we have, the bills that we have received reports from committees, we will want to expedite action so that we could conclude and say whether the bill has passed or it has not passed. And so when we are measuring our achievement, we can measure on the number of bills passed or bills negatived. Then you also agree that we did set up the conference committee on the amendment of the Constitution. We believe that they will be using the period of the vacation to work with the conference committee set up by the House of Representatives. So we will prioritize that. In fact, it's going to be almost our number one, so that because they contain matters relating to election and election-related matters, so that, and the amendment of the Constitution, so that when we pass in the Senate and the House of Representatives report, we will now forward it to the Houses of Assembly, and the Houses of Assembly, we will figure out which of them has adopted, which of the sections. We do a tally, and then declare each of those sections passed or not passed, so that the Independent National Electoral Commission, the political practitioners, the political parties, and the international community could know for certain what are the ground rules related to election and electoral matters. And of course, we're also interested in the section which sought to introduce all the presidents and former emeritus presidents of the Senate and emeritus speakers of the House of Representatives as members of the Council of State, so that they can also participate.
Now, speaking of the petroleum industry bill, during the debate on the floor of the Senate, there were several contentious issues which were raised, like the Frontier Development Fund. Do you think that the PIB will be passed before the end of this assembly?
Whatever the controversy, the committee will bring it up for us to consider the controversy. The job of why we committed it to the committee, the conference of committees, 4 committees, committee on petroleum upstream, petroleum downstream, gas and judiciary, 4 committees, was that let them hear the public, let them look at the issues that people are raising, that members of the public are raising, and make recommendation to the Senate. Now, when they make the recommendation, they will also lay before us the raw report of what they heard, what the public said.